What's up, YouTube? It is Alicia all here, and we are on day 5 of the NBA Challenge. And today we are going to be building something very, very exciting, and that is a data lake that's going to handle some sports analytics. So if you know anybody who's interested in sports betting and also cloud engineering, this is the place to be. Now, before we get into it, if you are new here, go ahead and smash that subscribe button because we are going to be dropping consistent content here. If you find any value, tap that like button. And if you have any feedback or things that you have questions on, smash it in the comment section. Now, before we get into anything technical, I just want to take a time to talk about your mindset. If you've made it to day 5 of this challenge, that has already set you apart from thousands of people who have just liked the post and joined the Discord, right? So give yourself a pat on the back for that. I want you to take a deep breath and tell yourself that you are the baddest to walk on 2 feet, because the thoughts that you have and the conversations you have with yourself is going to be 10 times more important than anything else on this journey to landing your next role and learning this new skill set, right? But that's enough talk. Let's go ahead and jump into the computer and talk about the 3 AWS resources we'll be using today, which is S3, Glue, and Athena. First up, we have AWS S3. Now, in this purpose of our sports data analytics data lake, S3 is going to serve as a simple storage solution. It's going to be the storage layer for our data lake. It's going to hold the raw and processed data in different formats, such as JSON, CSV, and Parquet. For this one, we are specifically going to be using a JSON file. If you need a little bit more of an overview of what S3 does, Amazon has a video linked here, and I will also put some below in the description for you. But when you think of a S3, right? The logo that comes up is a bucket. Buckets hold things. So that's going to be how we tie this together. S3 bucket holding our raw unprocessed data, right? And we did a quick Google search, an object storage service that allows users to store, retrieve, and manage data from anywhere. Glue is going to be a serverless data integration service that's going to catalog the data stored in S3 and enable schema definitions for querying with tools like Athena. So Glue, think of Glue, it holds things together, right? Glue, or our Glue crawler, is going to go into our S3 bucket, get this unprocessed data, and take it to Athena, right? As you can see here from this definition, it's a serverless data integration service that helps users prepare data for analytics, machine learning, and application development. And last but not least, we have Athena. Athena is also purple, right? I appreciate AWS for how user-friendly they were with color coding their different resources. But Athena, how it works, right? As soon as you type in any resource, it gives you a little bit about it. But Athena is the interactive query service. It's going to allow our users to query that data that's stored in S360. It is a serverless option. It's pay as you go. So it is cost efficient. So we don't have to worry about that at the scale that we're building these small projects in. But when you get into a company, you're going to want to think about the cost of the different resources that you're selecting to do different things. This is actually what's going to enable us to go and query the NBA players table for the analytics and exploration that we need without moving the data out of S3 at all. So a pretty cool thing. In summary, S3 is going to be where we're storing the raw NBA data. Glue is going to create a metadata layer or schema and table for the S3 data to make it queryable. And last but not least, Athena on the home stretch is going to execute those SQL queries on the Glue catalog data directly in S3, enabling our analytics. And if all of that sounds like a bunch of hoopla to you, that is okay. I'm going to link things below that explain it more in depth, but we have a high overview of what each player is bringing to the table in this project. So without further ado, let's jump into the code. Okay, now like any good teacher, I went ahead of you guys and cleared out the path so that way this can be as seamless as possible. Now I'm going to keep this high level going through this code just to give you some context, but if things don't connect, feel free to take this line by line and really understand why everything does the thing that it's intended to do. So, all right. So at the top, we have some different import configurations. Boto 3, as an example, is going to be used to interact with those AWS services. So we want to bring that in. We're going to import JSON. That's going to handle that JSON data formatting that we do when we upload it to our S3 bucket. Time is going to allow us to provide delays. So you'll see later in the code, we're going to wait for the bucket to propagate. This is going to give us a certain amount of time to do so. And then last but not least, requests. Whenever we are calling or fetching data from an API, you need to be able to use HTTP requests to do so, right? And so I know we didn't talk about APIs yet. Let's talk about their functionality when we get to that line of code. So next up, we have the AWS configurations themselves, right? And essentially what this does is this is going to tell us, okay, now that we have these resources that we want to create, where do they need to live and what is their name going to be, right? So now that we decided that, right, this is going to set up things that we can call later in our code. So that way we don't have to type things over and over again, right? So region, we're going to put this in US East 1 for now. If you live somewhere else and you want to replace that, you can. It's not going to like harm anything for what we're doing. But at an enterprise level, you want to make sure that you're building things close to where they will, where those resources will be talking. Because think about it, it's a lot quicker to run from Maryland to DC than it is to run from like Maryland to India. So you can leave it like this just so you don't have to worry about changing anything, but something you want to think about when you start building out enterprise level applications. Next, we have the bucket name. You want to change this to something unique to you. What I recommend you doing is creating like an alias, right? So all is a pretty uncommon last name. So I typically do like AL, AHL, and then plus, sports analytics data lake. So you could play off that. The Glue database name, we're going to name this Glue NBA Data Lake. This honestly just keeps it easier for me to look at these resources and know where or what project they're attached to. And then last but not least, our Athena output location. Now look at that. You already see it. We're going to call this bucket name up here and insert it within these curly brackets. So look at us, already called into the things we defined within the same line of code. Next up, we're going to actually start to create the clients. This is exciting. This is actually going to create these AWS clients for S3, Glue, and Athena to interact with these services. Now, remember, what we're doing right now is we are saying in code what we want to do within the AWS console or the UI, right? The web page. So instead of us going through and clicking all these buttons and saying, hey, I want to create an S3 bucket. I want it to live in this region. I want to add this description. We're just going to create code that does it for us in like a fraction of the time, right? So first things first, here. I'm not going to go through this in depth. We're going to keep this very high level. Basically what this is saying, and this is why I love Python, it's pretty easy to read once you understand some of the basics. We're creating a function and we're telling it what order it needs to process this data in. So if the region equals US East 1, then we're going to create our S3 bucket. If else, we need to have this location constraint in place in order to successfully create it. I won't go into detail about this, but the reason why we're using this if else statement at a high level is because for US East 1, no location constraint is needed. So that's the easiest region to use in any tutorial and just happens to be the region that I live in. So go figure. This print down here is very helpful because what it actually does is tells us easily after you run this code if it was successful or not. Now, some of the reasons why like this S3 bucket could fail, some of the error codes you'll see is that like the bucket already existed. So if you run this without changing the bucket name to something unique, you might experience an error or a warning that it was not created because it already existed. So moving into our next block of code, which is the glue, same thing. It's going to go and create this glue database for us, and it's going to print whether it is a success or not. It even gives it a nice little description for you. So let's get into the cool stuff where we actually fetch the data. So what this is going to do is this is going to send an HTTP GET request to the sportsdata.io API endpoint. It's going to use that key for authentication, right? It's going to use that key to get us in the door. And then what it's going to do is it's going to return our NBA player data in the JSON format. And this is going to be able to log and handle any errors that it may encounter while trying to go and talk to that API and get that relevant information. Now, once we fetch the data, now we need to store it somewhere, right? So think about it. We have our S3 bucket sitting, waiting to be filled. Now we're going to have it upload the data, the JSON file, as raw data to this file path here, raw data, and name it NBA player.json. It's going to create a glue table named NBA players. And what it's going to do is it's going to specify the table schema. So when you think about a table schema, think about it as almost like directions as to what is the setup of this table, right? What are the columns? What should you expect to see in those columns? And then, how is the information or the data separated? Data can be separated by commas. It can be separated by semicolons. It can be separated by space. You name it, it'll show what that looks like. So you see the player ID, first name, as an example. Integer, is it a number? String, is it just like a text, if you will? How do we want to treat all of this information? And then it links the table to the data stored in the S3. So now it is time to move on and configure Athena. As always, tells us if it was successful or not. So for configuring Athena, this is going to set up the query to actually query the data that's stored in that S3 bucket. And then it's going to configure where do we need to store the results from that query. And then if for whatever reason an Athena location doesn't already exist, it's going to go ahead and create one for us. Success or fail. And then last but not least, we are in our main function on the home stretch. This is going to call the function in a sequence that sets up our actual data lake itself. It's going to ensure that that S3 bucket actually exists before uploading the data, right? So that's why we have this time baked in here, this wait time baked in here. And then it's going to, boom, fetch the NBA data, upload it to the S3 bucket, create that glue table, and set up Athena. So this runs through everything that was defined up here, actually bringing it full circle. Cool. So now that we went through and actually talked about what the different lines of code does, let's actually get in the console and run this bad boy and bring it to life, right? So I'm going to I'm actually going to be following the steps here from the README. We are going to log into our AWS account and sign in. I'm already signed in. At the top left, you'll see this Cloud Shell button. If you click that, boom, this console pops up down here for us. Let's go ahead and extend this as well. So first things first, we are going to type in nano setup underscore NBA underscore data lake .py. And what this is actually going to do is this is creating a blank file for us where we can copy and paste content. Now, I am going to go back into my GitHub repository and I'm going to copy all of this code that is in let's show you from the beginning. That is in the setup NBA data lake.py. We just walked through all of this step by step. So grab that, copy, boom, paste. Now we're going to want to scroll up to the top. This actually is probably faster if you do it in an outside editor. We're going to want to scroll up to the top and we're going to want to swap out this API key here. Now in your sports data.io webpage. You have an API key. I don't want to expose mine to the entire world, just like you wouldn't show your car key to everybody. You don't want to show your API keys to everyone either in some capacity. Make sure you follow the steps in the prerequisite part on how you can actually get your API key. But I'm going to scrub it out, but it needs to go in between the string itself. Everything is looking good. Underneath of S3, we want to also create our own unique name. So we go to that bucket name at the top, and we're going to add in ALHL, right? Because that is my first two letters and my initials. Looking good. We can close this out by hitting Control X. It's going to ask us if we want to save it. We're going to hit Y on our keyboard to do so. Then it's going to ask us to confirm that that is the correct file name, and we are going to hit enter to do so there, right? So now this file has been created for us. If we hit ls, we now see that I have two files, this delete.py that I'll talk about using that later, and then this setup_mba_datalake.py file. So we are looking good. We added in our API keys, we created a unique S3 bucket, and now it's time to run this bad boy. So we're going to type in Python setup_mba_data_lake.py. And boom, we're off to the races, guys. Just like this. It created an S3 bucket before I could even say it. Like in less than a second. We did see some errors with some things already existing. This is the second time I ran this script, so that is possibly why that is there. But everything else ran and was completed. And so I'm not too worried about these errors because they're all just saying that they already exist, which is okay. So let's go back to the Amazon page, go navigate to our S3 bucket, type in S3 at the top. And I'm typically used to Azure, so it's pretty cool to get into this console itself and do that. Now we see our unique general purpose bucket that was created. We see raw data here. We click on NBA player, NBA_data player. I can't talk. We click on NBA player data.json and open it up, and boom. I think this is actually going to open up in Visual Studio for me. Okay, boom. And just like that, we have a lot of data, which to the naked eye, we can't really do a whole lot with. It would obviously take some extra querying to, try to pull something out of interest. Maybe you're curious how many people who won championships went to a certain school, or how many people who won championships are from a certain birth city, right? There's a lot of unique, interesting information in here about players, what jersey number they wore. So I will leave that to you and your curiosity, what it is that you want to, maybe we can make that like a little bonus project. Like not now because you have 20 days of project, but write this down. You could come back to this and create a query and see what you find. Maybe like all centers are from a specific state, or all championships went to a specific college. Like the most people with the most rings went to a certain school. The sky's really the limit. But yeah, that's that code. Let's just jump in because I want to show you one more thing in case you're interested in cleaning this up, right? So if you are like me and you have a bit of like a OCD borderline thing with keeping your resources clean, and you're like, I don't want to get charged, or I don't, want to have all of this clutter. I created, if we scroll up out of this README, I created this AWS, delete AWS resources file for you. If you copy all this and go through that same step, nano, delete.py, create the file name, whatever you want, and then run it, Python delete.py. What it actually does is it goes and it deletes all of those resources for us. So as you can see, it's deleting all resources in our AWS account. And if we did this correctly, we should come back here and refresh, and buckets are gone. There we go. That concludes day 5 of this challenge. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because we are just getting started with dropping heat. Day 6 tomorrow is going to be bloop, 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 bloop. I'm lying. This is day 4. Okay, I'm on day 4. Sorry. Day 5 tomorrow is going to be building out a team performance dashboard, real-time team statistics dashboard. You're going to be using CloudWatch and the NBA API. So I'm super excited for you. Make sure you stay tuned. Let me know how you like this one, and your portfolio is going to look phenomenal at the end of this challenge.